Queen Zelthara stood tall in a great hall of the Tsark palace, her silver-scaled skin glowing under the radiant lights of the dome above, as thousands of representatives from across the Dominion watched in silence. This was the final ceremony of the Tri-Star Accord, a treaty uniting the outer systems under Jareen rule, and her every word echoed with power. Human Guard Sergeant Ethan Cole stood among the honor security detail along the western column, watching the grand scene unfold with a strange feeling twisting in his chest. It's like he didn't belong, yet had somehow ended up exactly where fate needed him. Trained for combat, assigned for protocol. Cole was there as nothing more than a symbol of interspecies trust, just another face in armor. The Queen's voice rang like music, measured, clear, commanding until, without warning, her breath caught, her hand trembled. As she staggered backwards, one step, then another, clutching her chest as if something inside had just cracked. At first, no one moved. The audience froze, confused by what they thought was dramatic effect, or maybe a part of the ceremony. But as the Queen's eyes widened in pain and her legs gave out, the silence turned into a sharp ripple of horror, and royal physicians in dark robes rushed forward, shouting commands in the ancient tongue as the Queen collapsed to the gleaming floor. Gasps filled the chamber, and then Chaos Bloom guards moved to secure the area. Diplomats shouted, drones buzzed in confusion, and Cole's hand instinctively tightened around his stun rifle. Eyes scanning the balconies, the crowd, the sky above, but there was no visible threat, no weapon, no strike, nothing that made sense. The medics surrounded the Queen, deploying a stasis field to preserve her life. Their panicked expressions said everything Jareen Queens did not suffer heart failure. Not naturally, not with their engineered biology perfected over centuries of genetic sculpting. And yet here she was, unconscious, barely alive, her ceremonial necklace glinting like it mocked them all. As the royal broadcast feed was cut and the room cleared by command, Cole stayed frozen at his post, watching with sharp attention as the necklace shimmered again, just briefly, a faint pulse of blue light, so faint no one else seemed to notice, but it was enough to trigger a whisper of suspicion in his mind. A whisper that only grew louder as he replayed the moment over and over again. Later, in the barracks, the official report was vague. Unforeseen cardiac failure, Kay claimed, but the medics' faces haunted him. The tension, the confusion, the way they whispered behind closed doors. The T didn't add up. Cole reviewed the security footage from his visor, scanning frame by frame through the Queen's fall. Pausing at the exact second, her hand touched her chest. There it was again. That flicker of blue light from the necklace, subtle and brief, like a signal or a spark. It could have been nothing, just a design element or a trick of the lighting, but his instincts, honed by war and too many missions gone wrong, told him otherwise. Jareen Tech didn't glitch like that. They didn't fail like that. And more importantly, no one seemed to be asking questions. Not the guards, not the doctors, not even the Queen's Council. Something was wrong, and he could feel it tightening like a knot in the air. He remembered his father's words, old earth wisdom. Sometimes, son, the truth hides in plain sight, but only if you're looking for it. So, he decided to look. Cole requested a security sweep of the Queen's ceremonial garments under the pretense of foreign tech inspection. But his request was denied, twice, with more hostility each time, which only made his curiosity sharpen like a blade. He wasn't sure what he was chasing yet, only that something was off, and that pulse of light in the moment of her collapse meant something. He started digging through the diplomatic logs, tracing where the necklace had come from, who had gifted it, and why the item had bypassed normal security scans. According to palace records, the necklace had been a gift from the Aurelian ambassador 2 weeks ago, a minor species known for artistry and neutrality, but the origin file was sparse. Just a single line of registration from a trade ship that hadn't docked anywhere else for over a year. That didn't make sense. Cole tried accessing deeper archives, but his clearance wasn't high enough, so he turned to an old friend in the tech division, someone who owed him a favor. They met in a quiet sublevel of the palace, and within minutes, she confirmed what he suspected. The necklace had been flagged once for anomalous emissions, but the warning was cleared by a high-ranking official whose name had been redacted on a ceremonial item. That wasn't just strange, it was deliberate. Someone had covered their tracks. That night, Cole stared at the stars through the glass roof of the barracks dome, wondering what game was being played at the highest levels of power, and why a weapon or something like it had been given to a queen whose biology was designed to be unbreakable. Gerian medicine had eradicated cardiovascular failure centuries ago. What could mimic it so perfectly? He didn't know yet, but he knew this much. The queen hadn't just fallen ill, she'd been attacked, and if he didn't find out how and why, wouldn't just be her life in danger. The entire Dominion might be walking straight into the jaws of a hidden war. Ethan Cole moved quietly through the palace corridors, the night shift giving him the freedom he needed to act without too many eyes watching. Ever since Queen Zelthara's collapse, something had changed in the Aaron unease. Silence, too heavy to be natural, and Ethan trusted that feeling more than the calm statements issued by the council. Everyone acted like things were under control, but deep inside, he knew they weren't, and his instincts had never failed him during his years as a soldier and security officer. He had to see the necklace again, the one that glowed just before the queen fell, the one no one talked about anymore. Using the guard rotation logs, he memorized the timing of the cleaning crew that passed through the queen's chamber during the midnight cycle. That was when the surveillance systems would be least active, as drones would be rerouted for maintenance. He wasn't supposed to be there, but rules meant little when lives were at stake. The queen herself was still in stasis, held in a sealed medical vault, and her chamber had been mostly untouched since the incident. With practiced ease, Ethan bypassed the door lock using a temporary access override he borrowed from a maintenance drone, one of many tricks he had picked up from years of debt, adapting to high-tech environments with good old human creativity. Outside, the queen's chamber was dim, lit only by the soft blue hue of the walls, and in the center of the room lay a transparent display table holding the ceremonial items she had worn that day. The necklace sat at the center, its chain-like woven glass pendant, an intricate silver disc with tiny veins of crystal, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. Ethan stepped closer, staring at it. His eyes narrowed as he reached into his jacket and pulled out a compact sensor device, something he had used in combat zones to detect hidden energy signatures and cloaked devices. He held it near the pendant, and at first nothing happened, but then a sharp beep rang out, and the screen on the scanner flashed red. Unstable energy source detected. Foreign tech signature. That shouldn't be possible. Jareen were masters of biosignal control and artifact purity. No item placed on a queen would ever be allowed through without intense scanning. Yet here it was, sitting in plain sight. Slowly, carefully, Ethan picked up the necklace with a pair of insulated tongs and slid it into a sealed container lined with lead mesh. He had to get it analyzed, and he knew only one person who could do it: Dana Rourke. She was a civilian tech analyst with a military background, currently stationed at the diplomatic hub in the palace's lower sector. They had worked together during a pirate hunt years ago, and he trusted her like a sister. Dana didn't ask questions. When he showed up at her door after midnight, necklace in hand, expression grim, she let him in and scanned the room to make sure no surveillance drones were nearby. "You know, I could get court-martialed just for looking at this," she said, already powering up her diagnostic tools. "Good," Ethan replied. "Means it's important." Dana placed the necklace on her scanner bed, locking it under the docked microscope. The results began to scroll across the screen, Lines of data flashing too fast for an untrained eye, but her face slowly shifted from curious to stunned. "Ethan," she whispered, "this isn't just decorative. There's a microcore embedded in the Cinera data storage unit, smaller than a grain of rice. Jareen Tech wouldn't include something like this. This is custom work, and it's not Jareen." Ethan leaned over her shoulder, reading the diagnostic results. The energy pattern coming from the core was strange, like it was mimicking something biological, something alive. "It's pulsing," Dana said, "almost like it's syncing with nervous signals." "Wait, this is engineered to copy Jareen heart rhythms." That made no sense, unless someone had designed it to match the Queen's biological systems. And if that was true, then maybe it had been doing more than just copying. Maybe it had been disrupting. "You think it did something to her?" Ethan asked. Dana nodded slowly. "I don't think, Ethan. I know it did. This thing is outputting a neurological interference pattern, tuned specifically to Jareen cardiovascular nodes. It's subtle, not a direct attack, but like a constant whisper into her bionervous system. Over time, it could easily cause stress, then failure." Ethan stared at the necklace, now just a silent piece of metal under glass, and felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't a curse or a coincidence. It was an assassination device, one meant to bypass all of the Jareen's genetic enhancements and attack in a way that would leave no trace. "How did it get past their scans?" he asked. Dana shook her head. "Because it's cloaked to mimic organic signals. It's genius. Any scanner set to ignore normal Jareen frequencies would filter this out. It's hiding in plain sight." A long pause passed between them, both trying to understand the implications. "Someone tried to kill the Queen," Ethan said. "They used tech that no Jareen would recognize. That means it had to come from outside, maybe even from humans." Dana frowned. "This is beyond standard tech. The design is Terran in origin, yes, but it's modified heavily. This wasn't made in any public lab. This is black market stuff. Prototype level." She tapped the screen. "I can trace the signal. The core left behind a transmission pattern, maybe for syncing with the controller. If someone was monitoring her vitals or adjusting the pulse remotely, I might be able to find where the signal was being sent." She connected a secondary device and pulled up a local transmission map, layers of data webbing across the screen, like glowing threads. There just for a moment a faint outbound trace from the Queen's chamber, bouncing off a communication satellite, not on the regular registry. Dana zoomed in. "Encrypted, but it's been used recently. It links back to a cargo vessel that left orbit 3 days ago. The Vantage Wind, registered under Prometheus Vantage." Ethan's jaw tightened. Prometheus Vantage was a private, Earth-based corporation known for mining rights and frontier development. They had no business giving gifts to alien royalty. "This wasn't just a gift," he said. "It was a test. A field experiment." Dana nodded, and it almost worked. Ethan stepped back, his mind racing. This was no accident. Someone wanted the Queen dead, not through war or weapons, but through slow, quiet sabotage. A hidden hand using human tech to do something no enemy fleet ever could. Kill the unkillable. And now that he and Dana had uncovered the truth, he knew they were in danger too. He had to move fast. The Queen was still alive, but only just, and the plot might not be over. Someone might try again or silence anyone who got too close. Ethan stared at the necklace one last time, now just a dead device under glass. But to him, it was a weapon disguised as beauty, and behind it, someone had pulled the strings, believing no one would ever notice. They had been wrong. Ethan noticed, and now he wouldn't stop until he uncovered the rest. Ethan Cole didn't sleep that night. Not after what he and Dana had discovered about the Queen's necklace. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a message, or maybe even a warning, hidden inside a deadly gift. And he couldn't stop thinking about that faint transmission signal Dana traced to the departing cargo ship, Vantage Wind, operated by a shady Earth-based company called Prometheus Vantage. They were known for mining and off-world research, but their name had come up before in Black Ops rumors. Quiet whispers about illegal experiments in private armies. And now, they were linked to an attempted assassination of the most powerful alien monarch in the galaxy. He sat alone in the observation deck, stars shining cold and bright beyond the glass, trying to piece everything together: the necklace, the signal, the ship, and the Queen's sudden collapse. There had to be something he was missing. Some thread not yet followed, and then his thoughts snapped back to the microcord Dana found inside the necklace, because it hadn't just been sending signals, it had also been recording them. He rushed back to Dana's lab as the palace woke up under a false sense of normal, pushing past the early security checks and finding her still at her console, eyes bleary but focused as lines of encrypted data scrolled across her screen. "There's more in the core than just a tag code," she said before he could ask. "I was up all night decoding it. It's fragmented, but there's something inside, like layered data, patterns that don't match energy protocols, almost like audio, but not exactly." Ethan's heart skipped. "You mean there's a message in there?" Dana nodded, zooming in on the waveform that looked like a heartbeat turned sideways. "It's faint, like it's buried deep inside the energy pattern, but it's repeating every few seconds, too precise to be random. And when I filtered out the noise, I got this." She tapped a key, and a strange pulse filled the room. Not a sound, but a steady rhythm of short and long tones, almost like Morse code, but more complex. Ethan leaned in, listening carefully as the pattern looped again and again, each beat timed perfectly. "What if it's not just a sabotage tool?" he said. "Hi, what if it's a coded message disguised as a weapon? Someone wanted this seen, maybe even heard, but only by the right person." Dana sat up straighter. "Then we need to translate it. But this isn't a standard code. It's old, like a mix of human communication, tech, and something else. I'll run it through a few translation layers." Minutes passed, then an hour, as Dana rewired the audio into a signal breakdown system, decoding each pulse into symbols. Slowly, on the screen, words began to appear, one at a time. "Warning, Shadow Protocol. Not who you think. Trust Nature 1. 1, she is target 1. E is target 2. The message repeated, chilling in its simplicity, and Dana whispered, "It's a list, a warning, and a plan. The Queen was the first target. Someone else is next." Ethan clenched his fists. "Who's he?" Dana didn't answer right away. Sri ran the decryption with added parameters, pulling more layers from the microcore. "There's a second. File a name." She stopped typing. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Says Ethan Cole." The world spun for a second as he stared at the screen. His name glowing there like a death sentence. He was the next target, and suddenly everything made sense. Why the investigation was blocked. Why no one seemed interested in asking real questions. Why the council wasn't sharing the full medical report on the Queen. Whoever was behind this didn't just want her dead. They wanted anyone curious about her death erased too. Dana stood slowly, her eyes wide. "You're not safe here. We need to get you off-world." But Ethan shook his head. "No. If they want to silence me, it means I'm close to the truth. I'm not running. Need to find out who's behind this." Dana hesitated, then nodded. "Then we need more than data. We need physical proof. The kind the council can't ignore. Hey, and there's only one place where the full recording of that ceremony exists." Ethan looked at her, realizing instantly what she meant. The palace's central data core. A massive memory archive protected by military-grade firewalls and stored deep beneath the royal chambers. Only senior engineers and trusted advisors could access it, and only for official reasons. "We'll need a diversion," he said, his mind already working through guard schedules and sensor blind spots. Dana smiled thinly. "Leave that to me." That night, while a staged power failure forced a rerouting of patrol drones near the Royal Archives, Ethan moved through the maintenance corridors in full blackout gear, passing through emergency ducts until he reached the outer wall of the data core vault. He planted a compact disruptor Dana gave him, and in under 30 seconds, the wall shimmered and opened just enough for him to slip inside. The core itself looked like a giant tree of light, thousands of data strands glowing softly, each one a recorded memory, a moment in time, and he moved quickly to the section marked ceremonial recordings. He found the file from the day of the Queen's collapse and copied the raw footage onto a secure drive. But then curiosity got the better of him, and he ran a parallel scan of security logs from that same moment. There was something strange and anomaly in the biometric readings of the Queen's Advisory Council. One of them had no readable signal at the time of collapse, as if they had disappeared from the sensors for exactly 30 seconds. That wasn't normal. The logs listed the name, Advisor Kilron Vax, one of the Queen's oldest political allies, trusted, respected, above suspicion. Ethan had seen him on broadcast comm, collected, always near the Queen, but the missing biosignal meant one thing. Kelron had shielded himself during the attack window, maybe to avoid being tracked, maybe to hide his involvement. Either way, it was enough to raise alarm. Ethan downloaded the logs, stuffed the drive into his chest pocket, and slipped out before the backup sensors reactivated. Back at Dana's lab, he showed her everything: the footage, the sensor gaps, the hidden message in the pulse, and she stared at it all with growing horror. "This isn't just a corporate hit job," she said slowly. "This is deep. This is political. Kelron Vax has ties to Prometheus Vantage. His brother was on their board 5 years ago before he disappeared." Off the record, Ethan felt cold again. Used human tech to sabotage the Queen, maybe to take control, maybe to trigger a war. Dana nodded. Or all three. Silence fell between them for a long moment. Then Ethan straightened. "I need to confront him, but not directly. I'll expose the message to the High Council. If I go public, someone will try to stop me, and that's when we'll catch them." Dana looked at him, worry in her eyes. "Are you ready for that?" He didn't answer. Still glowing faintly under the necklace, still glowing faintly under the scanner. It had been the first whisper of the truth, and now it was a beacon. Somewhere out there, the real enemy was watching, waiting for the moment to strike again. But Ethan wasn't afraid anymore. They had turned him into a target, but now he was a hunter, and he had just found his prey. Ethan Cole stood silently in the shadows of the great council hall, his back pressed against the cool metal wall as he listened to the voices echoing from the chamber beyond. The very room where the Jareen High Council gathered each morning to discuss matters of state. And today, unknown to them, they were being watched by the man they had marked for silence. The memory core data was safely hidden inside a secure transmitter in his belt, and he had already sent a backup copy to Dana in case something went wrong. But as he listened to the discussion between the advisors, it became clear that things were far worse than he had imagined. Advisor Kelron Vax stood at the center of the room, calm and controlled as always, his tall figure casting a long shadow beneath the crystalline skylight above. But there was a sharpness to his words today, a coldness in his tone as he pushed for greater control over the Queen's recovery process, urging the others to limit access, to deny updates to the people, and to protect Jareen's strength through silence. Sethan heard it for what it was, a tightening grip of power, a slow choke on the truth. He scanned the room from his hidden vantage point and noticed subtle nods from 2 other advisors, quiet approval that confirmed his fear Kelron was not working alone. This was not just a personal betrayal, but a network within the council itself. And if they succeeded, the queen might never awaken. Her life would become a tool, a symbol under their control, while the real power shifted into Kelron's hands. Ethan activated a miniature audio drone and sent it hovering just under the ceiling to record everything. He needed more than proof. Now he needed names, plans, full exposure. Just then, Kelron's voice dropped lower as he turned toward Advisor Myron, a younger but influential counselor known for his strict views on tradition. The Terran must be dealt with, Kelron said quietly. He has seen too much. The data core breach proves his intent. Let the report state that he has fled with stolen information. It is treason, nothing less. Myron nodded without hesitation. We have support in the guard. An unfortunate accident during transport can be arranged. No questions will follow. Ethan's jaw tightened. They were moving fast. He couldn't wait any longer. He slipped out of the corridor, heading toward the public comms tower, where official broadcast messages were approved and transmitted directly to the planetary net. Dana was already waiting, having secured a temporary override access under her engineer credentials. Are you sure about this? She asked as he approached, holding out the transmitter. If you do this, there's no going back. Ethan took the device, his eyes steady. They already marked me. Now I mark them. Together, they entered the tower, slipping past sleeping operators with forged clearance and moving into the live feed room. Dana plugged in the drive while Ethan stepped into the holorecorder chamber. He kept the message, simple and emergency alert, addressed not only to the council, but to the people of Jareen itself. He played the decrypted pulse message, showed the Queen's collapse footage, pointed to the sensor gaps, the missing biometric signature of Kelron Vax, the human tech hidden in the necklace, and finally, he named the names Skelron, Myron, and 3 other counselors who had approved silent transfers of authority while the Queen lay unconscious. His voice was calm, direct, not angry, but firm. This is not just about Jareen or Earth, he said. This is about truth. One of your own tried to take control through shadows. I will not let them hide there any longer. Dana hit the transmit key, and within seconds, the message flooded the planetary grid, sent to every terminal, every screen, every vessel in orbit. The fallout was instant. Panic spread across the palace. Guards were dispatched, but not all followed the order. Some had seen the truth and refused to act against. Ethan. Outside, civilians gathered near the palace, demanding answers. Inside the council hall, Kelron's face paled for the first time as he watched the footage play out across the main display. He turned sharply to Myron, barking commands to trace the signal source, to block the broadcast. But it was too late. Dana had sent the files through the outer relay hubs as well, showing they echoed back in a constant loop. As chaos unfolded, Ethan and Dana slipped into the inner corridors, heading toward the medical vault, where the Queen lay in suspended healing. She was still unconscious, her body stable but unmoving, yet Dana believed she could be awakened with the right neural trigger, one that bypassed the stasis lock installed by the Council's own tech team. I found the override code buried in the same encryption pattern used in the necklace, Dana explained as they approached. It was designed to react only to a specific pulse, probably sent by whoever controlled the device remotely. Can recreate it, but will only get one shot. Ethan nodded, watching the corridor behind them in case guards loyal to Kelron arrived.
Do it.
Dana set the pulse generator near the Queen's stasis chamber and activated the sequence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the chamber lights flickered. A low hum echoed through the room, and slowly, the Queen's fingers twitched. Ethan leaned forward. Her eyes opened. Glowing silver irises, looked around, confused, then focused on him. You, she whispered weakly. Human, ... Guard. I know who tried to harm you, he said quickly. You're not safe. Your council has turned against you. Her breath steadied as she listened. Strength returned to her voice. Then I must return before they silence me for good. Dana helped her up while Ethan secured the room. The queen, though weakened, still held authority none could ignore. Moved through the inner halls as news of her awakening spread, faster than any order Kelron could issue. By the time they entered the council hall, the room had already split. Half the counselors rose in respect, while others, including Kelran, stood frozen, cornered by their own silence. The queen's voice rang out, calm but sharp as crystal. I have heard the truth. I have seen your lies. And now I have returned to judge them. Kelran stepped forward, trying to explain, trying to twist the events into something rational, but the data was already public. And the people would never forgive a silent coup masked as royal protection. Ethan stood beside her, not as a guard, now, but as the one who had pulled her from the edge of death and exposed the enemy within. And though the fight wasn't over, the balance had shifted. The shadow had been named. The first light of truth had broken through. The palace was no longer silent. Footsteps echoed through the great halls. Messengers ran between chambers, when alarms flickered at the edges of high-security corridors, for though the queen had returned to the throne, the truth had shaken the empire to its core, and Ethan Cole knew that exposing the traitors had only been the beginning. Now came the storm, and it would not wait. Advisor Kelvin Vax had vanished within minutes of the queen's public address, escaping with a small group of loyalists who had slipped through the outer gates, disguised as off-world traders. And now, whispers were spreading that he had joined forces with Prometheus Vantage, the Earth-based corporation whose involvement in the attack had become undeniable once the Queen's medtech team extracted the full data stream from the sabotaged necklace and matched its signal path to an illegal orbital station hovering beyond Jarian's sensor range. Ethan stood beside the Queen in her war chamber, a circular room filled with star charts, threat maps, and glowing symbols of foreign fleets, as she reviewed reports from her intelligence ministers. Her silver eyes, calm but sharp with new purpose, she had nearly died, and now she would not let her empire sleep again. Kelron wants chaos, she said softly, her voice like a blade wrapped in silk. He will use fear to drive division. Already, 3 outer colonies have begun questioning the throne's control, and I suspect Prometheus has sent envoys promising power to those who turn against me. Ethan clenched his jaw. They're going to start a war. They think Jareen is weak now. She looked at him. Are we? No, he said without pause. Not if we strike first. That night, under the guise of darkness, Ethan and Dana boarded the stealth ship Silent Ember, a high-speed infiltration vessel designed for deep reconnaissance, and set a course for the unregistered orbital station, believed to be Kelron's new base of operations. Their goal was to intercept communications and confirm whether Prometheus Vantage was preparing a full-scale offensive. And if they were, the Queen needed to know when and where they would strike. The journey took 5 hours through black space, each moment tense as sensor ghosts danced at the edge of their radar. But when the station finally appeared, it was nothing like Ethan had expected. Massive, half-built, but bristling with strange antennae and heavy weapons, with Earth and Jareen tech blended together in a way that looked rushed, dangerous, and entirely illegal. Dana ran scans from the co-pilot seat. There's a signal, she said quietly. Encrypted, military grade, not just human. Is hybrid codizering language patterns embedded inside human frameworks. Whoever built this, they've been planning it for a long time. Ethan activated the surveillance drones, sending them out to skim the station's surface and tap into exterior comm nodes. Within minutes, they intercepted a live transmission between Kelron and a Prometheus commander named Garrick Vale, a name Ethan recognized from Earth's Deep Ops Register. Vale had once been stripped of rank for unsanctioned genetic experiments. on alien species. Yet here he was, alive, well, and speaking freely. The Queen has risen. Kelrin's voice snapped through the feed. The window has closed for a clean transition. We must act now before she consolidates her support. Vale responded with cold precision. Our fleet is already en route. Strike 1 begins at Elter's Reach. We'll hit their energy hubs first. No lights, no shields, no resistance. By the time she reacts, her people will already be asking who failed to protect them. Ethan's heart pounded. He turned to Dana. Elter's Reach is a major civilian zone. They hit that, thousands will die. We have to warn the Queen. But Dana's face had gone pale. It's worse than that. Look at the encryption signature. On that signalet matches the same pulse buried in the necklace. That means Kelron used Prometheus code before the Queen collapsed. He didn't just join them after, okay? He was working with them from the start. Ethan activated the drone recall. Okay, then we're not looking at a coup. We're looking at a war. Engineered from both sides, from inside the Council and from Earth's Rogue Command. They set course back to Jareen at full speed, but as the stars blurred around them, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were still one step behind. Prometheus Vantage had ships, weapons, codes, and now a traitor with royal secrets. And worst of all, the people of Jareen still didn't know how close death had come. They arrived hours before the first attack and rushed to the Queen's chamber, the data in hand. She was already in full command mode, issuing orders to mobilize outer defenses and redirect fleet assets toward Elta's Reach. When Ethan presented the intercepted recording, her expression did not change, but her hands curled slightly at her sides. So, it is war, she said, but we will not let them choose the battlefield. Within minutes, her personal guard activated the Skyforge fleet, a legendary strike armada held in reserve for only the gravest threats. Ethan watched as carrier ships, dreadnoughts, and stealth fighters lifted from the hangars in perfect synchronization, spreading like silver wings across the sky. Yet, even with all that power, he knew this war would not be won in space alone. It would be won by exposing every lie, every secret, every name behind the shadows. That night, just before the first battle cries echoed across the stars, Ethan stood on the balcony outside the war chamber, staring into the dark skies lit with streaks of engine fire. And beside him, the Queen appeared, no longer in her ceremonial dress but clad in tactical armor lined with Jareen glyphs. "I owe you more than I can repay," she said softly. "You saved my life, and now you fight to save my people. You are no longer just a guard, Ethan Cole." He turned to her. "Then let me be what you need me to be, till this is over." She nodded. "Then stand beside me, 'cause the first drums have sounded, and the heart of this empire must not falter." Far above, the stars blinked in and out of view, and the hum of vengeance grew louder. War had begun not by conquest, but by betrayal. And now, in the shadows between galaxies, the last light of truth would rise not from kings or weapons, but from those who chose to face the darkness and hold their ground. The war had burned through the stars, like a storm of fire and silence. And now, as the last battle drifted into memory and the wreckage of Prometheus' ships floated in dark space, the skies above Jareen slowly cleared. The people had survived, the empire had endured, and Queen Serana still stood upon her throne, but victory had come at a price. And Ethan Cole, once just a human guard, now carried the weight of everything that had happened, every lie uncovered, every name exposed, and every life lost in the shadow of betrayal. The traitor, Kelron Vax, had been captured in the final assault, hiding among the burning decks of the orbital station he helped build. And though his words now were filled with regret, no one listened. He was bound for trial before the full council, stripped of every title, his name already cursed in the tongues of children. Prometheus Vantage, too, had fallen, its secret fleet crushed, its assets seized, its leaders hunted from Earth to the edge of the Andromeda Divide. But Ethan knew. Some would slip away, some would vanish in wait, and that was why peace felt fragile, like glass warmed in fire. The Queen had called for calm, for unity, for rebuilding, and her people obeyed. Not with blind faith, but with fierce loyalty, for she had awakened not only from death, but from illusion. And she had led them into truth with eyes open. Yet for Ethan, there was one truth left unspoken, one question that pressed on his mind every day since the war ended. What now? He was no longer a soldier with a simple duty. He had broken laws, disobeyed orders, even defied the High Council, and yet she had pardoned him, kept him close, not just as protector, but as something more. They had shared whispers on starships, stood back to back in battle, and now, in the quiet after the fire, something had changed between them, something deeper than duty. He stood on the palace's upper terrace one evening, watching the twin moons drift slowly across the sky, their light casting long shadows across the silent gardens below. The wind was soft, carrying the scent of the ocean, and above him, Gerion's banners fluttered like the wings of birds returning home. He didn't hear her approach until she spoke. "You still wear the uniform," she said. He turned, surprised to see her dressed not in armor or royal robes, but in a simple white tunic. Her hair unbound, her eyes not glowing with command, but soft, curious, searching. "I don't know what else to wear," Ethan replied with a faint smile. "It reminds me where I started." She stepped closer, looking past him at the stars. "We were never supposed to meet. Not like this. A human guard and a Jareen queen. What a strange twist of fate." He nodded. "You almost died, and I almost got killed for speaking the truth. I think that makes us even." She laughed gently, then fell silent. The pause stretched, but not in discomfort. "Finally," she said, "they want me to choose a successor. The council fears another attack might come, and they want someone to lead if I fall again." Ethan frowned. "You're still strong. You've proven that." "It's not about strength," she said. "It's about continuity. They want someone bound by law, chosen through tradition. But I no longer trust tradition alone." Tradition gave Kelron power. It gave him silence. He stepped closer. "What are you saying?" She met his eyes. "I'm saying I want someone beside me who sees truth before politics, who guards more than just my life, who questions even me when I am wrong. Someone like you." The words struck him like thunder, not because they shocked him, but because they felt real, heavy with meaning. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. "That's more than duty." "Yes," she said, "it is." Another pause, the wind whispering around them like voices of the stars. "They'll never accept me," Ethan said at last. "Not as a counselor, not as ... anything more." "They'll learn," she said, "or they'll fall behind." "In Earth," he asked, "they still see Jareen as dangerous, and me as a traitor?" She shook her head. "Earth is changing. Your name is not unknown there anymore. Some call you a hero, some call you a spy. But all of them know you stood for life." He looked at her, really looked, and saw not the queen who had commanded fleets or silenced traitors, but the woman who had whispered his name before she collapsed in that golden hall, who had awakened not just because of medicine, but because someone had refused to let her slip away. He reached into his coat and took out the broken shard of the necklace, the very one that had almost killed her. "This nearly ended you," he said, "but it also led me to the truth." Strange, isn't it? She took it gently from his hand and looked down at it. "Symbols only have the meaning we give them. This once held betrayal, but now it holds memory." "Then what now?" he asked quietly. "What happens to us?" She stepped forward, so close now that the space between them vanished. She said, "It's not a question for guards or queens. It's a question for two people who walked through fire and found each other still standing." He swallowed hard, the sound of his heartbeat loud in his ears. "And your answer?" She smiled, and in that smile was everything unspoken. "Ask me again tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day until the stars fade." So, beneath the silver sky, where moons danced and banners flew, a guard and a queen stood side by side, not as ruler and subject, but as two souls bound by truth, shaped by war, and guided not by rank or title, but by the question that no enemy, no council, no empire could silence. What do we choose now that we are free?